Hello and welcome to Super OK, where we try to do a decent enough job to entertain people with our opinions on video games. As always, my name is Dale, and I'm joined here by one of my absolute favorite humans, Xando. Xando, how you doing today, man?
I'm doing all right. How about yourself?
You know, I took an accidental nap after work, so I'm feeling much better. You know, it's funny because I was like, I'm going to take a nap for 20 minutes. And then I took that 20-minute nap, and then I was like, 10 more minutes. And then I was like, 5 more minutes. And then at some point, I just stopped looking at the alarms.
Yep. I've known of the Dale for a long time, and a 20-minute nap I don't think has ever happened.
It happens all the time. You just don't hear about them.
I don't know.
You just don't hear about them.
You take multiple 20-minute naps at a time. I think maybe that's what you're confused.
I mean, maybe. I don't know. I'm drunk. A nap.
Must be fucking nice.
Anyway, sorry to all the parents out there. Yeah, it's me and a bunch of toddlers taking naps. Although toddlers probably aren't taking naps at like 5:30 in the evening.
No,
anyway,
toddlers are not.
Yeah,
babies is. Babies sleep all the time.
Me and them babies. Love it. It's so stupid. All right. This is Super OK. It's a video game podcast. So of course we're going to start with the highlight of the week. This is a thing that we had happen to us sometime in our week, made our week a little bit better, a little bit brighter, a little bit nicer to live in. And I'm going to go first because I rarely go first.
Do it. I want you to go first.
So for several months now, both my wife and I have been having difficulty with our cellular telephones. Like we've had to restart them. They haven't really been holding as much of a charge. Certain apps will cause them to crash, like that sort of stuff. Mm-hmm. And so it finally got bad enough for Ange to where she was like, it's new phone time. I have been saying it's new phone time since like 3 months ago. Right. But it finally got bad enough to where she was like, I agree. The time for new phones is now. And so we went and got new phones. And man, there are a few pleasures like having a brand new phone. It moves so much quicker. Everything looks better on it. Like it's very nice. If it weren't for the planned obsolescence, I don't know that I'd need it. But man, having it, real good time. Don't even have a case yet, which is a little terrifying. I thought I dropped it underneath one of the car seats earlier today, like one of the seats in the car. And I was like, oh, I scratched that motherfucker. But no, it turns out it was just a chapstick that fell under there. And I can get as scratched as it wants. So, yeah, absolutely love new phone week. And then my old Apple Watch was like, I don't want to pair to this new phone. So it also turned out to be new Apple Watch week.
Nice.
So, yeah, pretty enjoyable.
So the new Apple Watch thing is a harder thing to commit to than the phone. So I feel like they're constantly giving you good deals on the phones, and Apple Watch is always like, fuck you, this is the price.
Kind of. Verizon would like cut you a deal if you signed a 3-year contract on the watch. But
I ain't doing that.
I'm not doing that. Exactly. I had a cellular watch for a long time that I was paying for, and I never used the like cellular functionality of it. So fuck that. I just went and got a new one. But my old one was like 5 years old at this point, so I didn't feel bad about it.
Yeah, I feel like I've always got obviously my cell phone is with me. So like the idea of a cellular watch or a cellular tablet, it just doesn't make any friggin' sense to me.
I went with it because I was like, oh man, I'm gonna be like bike riding a lot and I won't want to have to take my phone with me. I can just like listen to music through my watch, and you have to have headphones connected. And if I'm gonna have headphones, I might as well just have my watch in my pocket and have them connected to that, because that's what they're always connected to. The only time I can remember distinctly using my cell phone function on my watch was 2 times. One, I did it from the middle of a lake because I was like, this is a thing I can do. And then I did. and it was stupid. And then the other time was I was in a store, had left my cell phone in the car with Ange, and I needed to call her for clarification on something. And I'm doing it. I'm like calling her from my watch, and I'm like, I could just walk outside. What do I need? What do I need this for?
Yeah.
This is dumb as hell. So yeah, I'm out. But I understand, like, if you're a runner or like something like that, like having it, but it's just not for me.
Yeah, my mom had the cellular watch, and that was, I mean, she's also a fall risk and all that, so it makes sense for her to have it because she might not always have her phone, but
Yep.
as long as her wrist is strapped to her watch, we're in good shape.
Yep. Yeah, very true. So, what's your highlight of the week, sir?
I don't know if anybody has heard about this thing called the NFL, but they had their draft this past weekend.
Wait,
and I'm by no means a footballman.
NFL?
Yeah, the National Football Laser Squad, I think. I don't know, something.
I'd watch that.
They have this thing where they draft players and they make a 3-day event out of it because everybody needs to have their speculations, and why it's 3 days long is anyone's guess.
Mm-hmm.
But they do it, and everybody seems excited about it. At least 725,000 people came to Detroit, like fucking
absolute
crazy
madness.
And that's not even counting everybody that came. That's how many people they stopped letting people in at.
Yeah.
But anyway, because of the nature of my job, I had to do set up a couple different events, like setting up LED walls down by Comerica and being inside Ford Field and like running the AV for their party that they had. So that was a very long day. That was Thursday was a 16-hour day.
Jeez.
And I got home about 2 a.m, and my daughter woke up at 5 and was very excited because she lost a tooth. So she started calling out for me at about 6 o'clock, and I'm like, I'm so happy that you lost a tooth, kid, but I'm tired as hell. I'm going to go back to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't, of course.
Oh, no.
And then I had to go back to work and work another eight hours, which was like tearing down everything we had done the day before. So on very little sleep, we tore down all the stuff at Ford Field. We tore down another event. We got it all back to the shop, and we just all like 2 of our trucks were just fucking full of shit that we needed to unpack. And as we're driving back, my coworker, his name's Chester, says, "Hey man, what are you thinking for lunch? Did you bring a lunch?" And I said, "Yeah, I did bring a lunch." He's like, "Oh, okay." I was like, "But just out of curiosity, what were you thinking for lunch?" And he said, "KFC." I was like, "You son of a bitch, I'm in." So I had him go pick me up a combo meal, right?
Yep.
And I ate that on top of the lunch that I brought. And then it was time to unpack the trucks. And Thursday, which is the day of the draft where we were setting shit up outside, was very cold and windy and just like miserable cold. Well, not miserable, but the weather in Michigan for the past like 2 weeks has been like, hey, it's going to be 80 degrees. Hey, it's going to be fucking 12 degrees. And so we were kind of in the middle of that. But Friday was nice. It was like 60 degrees. The sun was shining. So we had to go out and like unpack the trucks. And I looked at my other coworker. His name's John. I said, "Hey, John, we're going to have a spa day." He goes, "Oh." And I said, "Just kidding. It's a ska day. Get your trumpet. Go turn some fucking music on." And so he hooks his phone up to the sound system that we have in our garage. He starts blasting some real big fish. The sun is shining. I've got a belly full of KFC, and I felt like a fucking superhero, man. And we just unloaded the truck and had a great time listening to some punk rock and some ska. It was just a good, like, sunny day afternoon. Belly's full, heart's full. It was good times. And then I got to go home. So when we were done doing all that stuff.
I think that's from a Footballman movie, actually. Belly's full, heart's full, can't lose, or something like that.
Who knows? It might be.
Yeah, that's great.
That magical combination is something I've never had before. Sunshine, punk rock, and KFC. So I just recommend that to everybody. If you want to have a real good day, try those 3 things.
Look, Ken confirm. Ken 100. I've had it several times. It's great. It's great every time.
If you're ever having a lousy day, get you a bucket, get you some KFC, or get you some ska or punk rock, and just have a good time in the sun, man.
Yep. Yeah, unless the double down is on the menu, don't get the double down. That will mess your day up. But everything else at KFC.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man. That is a great story. Truly, truly one of the best feelings is full belly, great music, and good, good sunshine. So, so this NFL draft thing, it sounds like it was kind of a big deal, huh?
Yeah, and it's just a weird thing for me to be like, you know, my Thursday nights used to be Dungeons and Dragons and joking with my friends about like Star Wars and shit. And now I'm
Yeah.
at the fucking football field. Like, what's happened to my life?
Yeah, I mean the draft, a cultural phenomenon, but you mentioned Star Wars,
I did.
and that is way bigger of a cultural phenomenon because the draft, it was in one place, right? Great city, Detroit. It's sometimes in other places. I don't know. I don't follow it, but I do follow Star Wars, and I can tell you for a fact that it is everywhere. They got movies, they got TV shows, they got Taco Bell kids meal tie-ins, they got toys at the store, they got onesies that make you look like Chewbacca, they got lightsaber chopsticks, they got theme parks, they got cartoons, cereal, a Jar Jar Binks lollipop where the candy is his tongue, and so when you eat it, it looks like you were making out with Jar Jar, an R2D2 aquarium, a Darth Vader showerhead, a dog costume that makes your dog look like an AT-AT, and of course, video games.
Mm-hmm.
But this wasn't always the case. In fact, despite the fact that the first movie came out in 1977, the first video game didn't come out until 1982, and it was called The Empire Strikes Back. And if you've been paying attention to Star Wars at all, you know that ain't the first movie. It was, in fact, based on the second movie of the franchise. It was a rather simple game where you played as a speeder shooting at infinite AT-ATs until they overtook the Hoth base. It, for lack of a better word, sucked. But since then, the video games have gotten better. And May the 4th is coming up, and so we decided to talk about those Star Wars video games. So let's get the easy one out of the way. What was your first ever Star Wars video game?
My first one that I remember seeing was Star Wars for the NES. I watched my brother play it, but I dove much more into the Super Star Wars series on SNES. That was like a quest of mine for a while, was to own all of them, but I bought them pre-owned from Babbage's or whatever. Yeah, it was Funkoland at the time. Funkoland.
Okay. Yep.
And those games were like ridiculously difficult sometimes, but they were Star Wars, and I was having fun with it.
Yeah, and your brother is just like a casual Star Wars fan as well, right?
Super duper casual. Nothing weird about that guy. No, for the uninitiated, my brother, for the better part of the last 15 years was the commanding officer of the Great Lakes Garrison of the 501st Legion. And for those who are uninitiated in the uninitiation, the 501st Legion is the group of guys who dress up in Star Wars costumes and do charity work while they're in there. They are Lucasfilm's preferred costuming group. So if they come around and are doing an official event, they will reach out to the local garrison or chapter or whatever the hell they're called and say, hey, we need some stormtroopers and some other characters for this. Y'all want to be in? And they're just excited to be a part of it.
Yeah.
So my brother's got a completely screen accurate stormtrooper costume. When he joined the Legion in 2008, he was one of like 104 people in the nation who had one that was like that accurate. And he since then has an X-Wing pilot, an Imperial officer, a snowtrooper commander, and I think that's it. He got real into costuming for a while.
Oh, that's it. He only has 5 screen accurate Star Wars.
I can't say that the other ones are screen accurate. His stormtrooper, he like was very meticulous about. That was his very first costume.
Okay, fair enough.
But since then, he's just gone and done a bunch of other things. Like so, I would always joke. So my parents sold all of his old Star Wars action figures when he was young, and he like held a grudge with that for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
So in 1997, when they started releasing the Power of the Force figures, when they brought the Star Wars toys back into the lexicon, he from 1997 until 2008 collected every single action figure in duplicate. He would have one to open and put on display and one to keep in the box and tucked away. And sometimes multiple. If it was a faceless character like a stormtrooper or whatever, he would get those. If they were exclusives and hard to get, he would get multiples of those. He's actually the reason why to this day I hate fucking Fruit Loops, is because they had a special thing where you could get the Ghost Obi-Wan action figure, if you just sent in a whole bunch of proofs of purchases from Fruit Loops. And so my house was fully stocked with fucking Fruit Loops from like for all of 1998 or something like that. And that was all the cereal that I had was goddamn Fruit Loops.
Amazing.
So today we're going to spare Dan and I'm just going to say fuck Fruit Loops.
We'll see about the Dan thing. But yeah, so you come by it honestly, which is pretty nice. Yeah. My answer to this first Star Wars game I played, of course, I'm old as hell. It was that busted ass Empire Strikes Back game on my neighbor's Atari. Shout out to Stephen Payne. The game was impossible. It was like you had to shoot these AT-ATs like 40 freaking times. In researching this episode, I realized that if you shoot the legs, it doesn't count. I did not know that as a child. So that sucked. I remember for some reason there being like the trip ropes that you could use to like stop them, but that was not in the game, so my brain is bad.
Right.
But that game sucked, man. It sucked total butt. But the next one that I remember playing after that was Super Star Wars on the NES, similar to yours. I enjoyed it. It was a pretty okay 2D platformer. We rented it, which meant that I basically didn't get anywhere in the game.
Yeah, you probably got to the sand crawler like everybody else, and like, no, this game's too fucking hard, and the levels are too long.
Yep.
That fucking sand crawler, dude.
Yeah. Yeah, it was ridiculous. Why can't you just buy a
sand crawler? Hope you don't fucking fall. Like what? Why is this thing so goddamn big? And then it was even bigger on the inside. It was like a fucking TARDIS.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Damn,
yeah, game was hard as hell. But that was my first one, but definitely not my last. So obviously there's been a ton of different Star Wars video games over the years. And so we're going to talk about them. We're going to break it down by genre. It's just an easy way of like categorizing and that sort of thing. So have you ever gotten into any of the platformers or adventure games?
Well, because my brother is who he is, he dragged me into Star Wars. I wasn't like resistant to it or anything, but Star Wars was a big part of my life growing up. And so anytime there was a video game, I was like, oh, I can take these two great things that should taste great together and let's see what we do. And so I played a lot of Yoda stories for the PC in the 90s. Star Wars, The Force Unleashed 1 and 2, where I would probably put pretty high on the list of quality anyway. The Lego Star Wars games, Shadows of the Empire for Nintendo 64 was a must-have at that time. The aforementioned Super Star Wars games. There's a whole bunch of action adventure games that are Star Wars that I've played. And Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order is on my backlog list. That's something that I think I picked up for like $5 recently that I've been meaning to try, and I just haven't done it yet.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. I have thoughts about many of these, but some of them I'll save for a later question. But I will just agree that Fallen Order is definitely on my backlog. I haven't played that or Jedi Survivor. I hear both of them are awesome, so I 100% need to check those out.
What do you know about Yoda stories, though?
I want to save that for later.
Okay.
That's the one I want to save for later.
Nice.
So as I mentioned before, I played Super Star Wars, but I skipped the other two since they were super freaking difficult. And I was like pissed off by them. I really, really enjoyed Force Unleashed. I thought it was awesome. I thought the fact that it was like canon was really cool back when it came out. Just a really, really great storyline. And I also loved the tie-in to Soul Calibur 4 at the time. So that got me hyped for Force Unleashed. So really enjoyed that. I tried a couple of the Lego games. Lego games are just not for me. Yeah. I really played like one of them and never went back. But yeah, all in all, I would say like platformers and the adventure games, they're pretty hit or miss for me.
They really are.
Yeah. They were not my
just for you. I think in general, like I think that's the tricky thing about making a good Star Wars game is like there's so like everybody likes the whole like chasing. Well, aside from the very first one, likes the whole Hoth battle Like they always want to play that, but then like, how do you transition that cool flight action game to, oh, now I'm in the base, or now I'm just walking around? It's like it's such a delicate balance you have to find in these games.
Yep. Very much so. Very much so. What I can say is not hit or miss for me though. RPGs and MMOs. Have you ever played any of these?
Not really. No. It's my secret shame, much like yours of Castlevania Symphony of the Night, that I've never played any of the Knights of the Old Republic games.
Spoiler warning for our
And I'm sorry
Metroidvania
about
episode.
I assume everybody listens to these episodes as soon as they come out. So
Yeah, that's true.
That's on you if you didn't listen.
Yeah. It's been out a whole week or whatever, maybe 2 weeks.
Right.
Week.
Yeah.
It's been 1 week since you looked at me.
Yeah.
Man.
I know that those games are fantastic. I know that they are. I think I have them on Steam. I just have never booted them up. I think a friend of mine got me to play the intro one time, and I was like, "This seems like it would be interesting, but I'm not going to sit here and play it with you because that's weird. Like this is a role playing game. I need to be playing this by myself." And so I just have never. I didn't have an Xbox when it came out, so. It's finding the time to sit and play that. And by the time I did get an Xbox, I was just using it for like having LAN parties for Halo. So that was just not very high on my list at the time.
It checks out. It sucks, but it checks out.
Yeah. Sorry about it.
I mean, you shouldn't be sorry to me. You should just be sorry to you.
I am.
Because I firmly believe that Knights of the Old Republic might be both the best Star Wars game ever made and also the best D&D game ever made, up until Baldur's Gate 3, because it actually uses the D&D 3.5 rule set under its hood, and you can like go in and see all of the different roles that you make, and like it's very, very cool the way that it does it all. It was the first game that I remember where it was like either turn-based or real time, and it did it really, really well. It is so brilliant. I am so glad that it is not dead. There is a company who has picked up the remake of them, and so at this point, if you haven't played them, maybe just wait the 2 or 3 years until the remake comes out. Unless you already own it, you maniac, in which case you probably just want to play it on Steam. It's worth it.
One of these days I'll check it out. It's also, I know it's an RPG, and I have like, because my time with gaming now is so few and far between.
Yeah.
It's a hard thing for me to commit to sitting down. Like I've had Final Fantasy 16 for months, and I'm like, oh yeah, like every once in a while I'm able to put like 3 or 4 hours in. I'm like, oh, that was great. That's such a good session. And then I'm like intimidated, like, oh, I'm not going to have time to put the amount of time I want into it. And so I just don't play it.
Yeah, that's fair. I totally understand that. I totally get that. As far as the MMOs are concerned, did you ever check out either of those?
I did not.
Okay.
For the longest time, I told myself I'm not going to do MMOs, like the whole like paying $15 a month to play a video game I've already paid like a full retail price for. I was staunchly against. And then as my friends were getting into it and they were trying to say like, hey, I think you would really like this. It's like, yeah, I don't know. I also know my personality, and I'm going to dive fully into this, and I'm going to hate my life for it. So I was like, I'm not going to play any MMOs for a very long time. And I didn't until we started started playing Final Fantasy 14.
Yeah.
But and now I'm not as against them, but it just didn't really grab me. And it was in those times when I was against it, so I just never jumped into it. However, I do have a friend who was very, very into it.
Yeah.
And he's younger than I am, and just like actually developed like some lower back issues and maybe some hemorrhoidal issues from sitting and playing it for too long. And like to the point where he was like one of the most feared players in the game, like, or maybe not feared, but like renowned or infamous. Like he went to Star Wars Celebration, and someone like found out he was who he was, and like they're like, holy shit, can I get your autograph?
Oh geez.
Yeah. One of my favorite stories of his is he was playing a bounty hunter, and there was a bounty out on some Jedi, and he just happened to find out where this guy was when they were having an in-game wedding. And he said he walked into the place where it was, and it was like there were people in like seats on aisles or whatever, and like the ceremony was happening. So you just have to imagine like a sanctuary or like just a setting where there's rows and rows of people.
Yep.
The betrothed are up front, and then in walks a bounty hunter, lays down in the aisle and snipes and kills the guy during his wedding. And then all of a sudden all these Jedi like pull out their lightsabers and chase him out.
That's amazing.
I wish he would have had like a capture card and could have recorded that, because what an incredible incredible thing to see. He's like, I took my time, like I wasn't trying to be sneaky. I walked right into that place and like laid down prone, pulled out my big ass gun, and just killed this guy at his wedding.
That's amazing. I love it. I absolutely love it. As far as the MMOs are concerned, I never spent any time with Galaxies. I honestly, hearing stories about Galaxies, I wish I would have, because that was the game where it was like hard as balls to unlock the ability to be a Jedi.
Mm-hmm.
And that just seems like, I love the non-Jedi parts of Star Wars as much as I love the Jedi parts of Star Wars, but all we really get usually is the Jedi stuff.
Right.
And so the idea of this MMO where it's just like a bunch of scoundrels, bounty hunters, and like law enforcement types and all of that seems really cool to me. But by the time I found out about it, it was like long past that time period. That said, I did spend some time with the Old Republic, and the story was really good. I played as a Sith Lord. It was fun as hell, just running around being evil as shit. The story was awesome in that game. And that one's currently, I believe, free to play. So if you're like, hey, I'm interested in a Star Wars MMO, can't hurt to check it out.
Yeah.
It won't cost you anything other than time.
And I think there are some fan run servers for Galaxies as well. So I think there is still ways to play that, but I don't know if it's one of those things where it's like it's such a hardcore group that still plays that if you're playing it as a new person, you're probably not going to have a great time.
Right, exactly. It's probably pretty daunting, I would imagine. And plus, like, you'd have to pick the right time period as well.
Yeah.
Or like the right patch or whatever. And I just do not have time to like research all of that. So what about first person shooters or flight games?
I've dabbled in them, like the Rogue Squadron games. Again, none of them. The weird thing about it, as much as I loved Star Wars and video games, I could have such a hard time finding ones that I really, really liked. Battlefront, I guess. So that's kind of a first person shooter. That's more of a third person, but I guess we'll count it because it's a shooter. And that's all we really care about.
Yeah.
The first one I really enjoyed, and the second one came out, and I know everybody says Battlefront 2 was better. But I just didn't get into it because that's when they started introducing characters you could play as, and I didn't get it when it first came out like I did the first one. And I'm of course talking about the first run of Battlefront when they were good, and not the second ones, which were not so good.
Yep.
But I did play those as well because when I got my PS4, it was the Battlefront edition because it had Darth Vader on it, and I was like, oh, if I'm going to buy PS4, I may as well wait and get this fucking Star Wars Special Edition. Sorry to put those words together in a sentence, but that's what it is. But yeah, not really first person or flight games unless we're counting episode 1 Pod Racer. Played that.
I mean, yeah, I'll count it. I forgot about
first person view, right?
Yeah, I forgot about Pod Racer. How dare I?
What about Bombad Racing, the cartoony one?
What?
The Super Bombad Racing. It was a PlayStation 1 exclusive. It was like cartoony. All the characters were like it was like a tiny ship and like a big character sticking out of it. So even though the Millennium Falcon has a cockpit, like Han Solo was on top of the Millennium Falcon for some reason.
Sounds terrible.
Yeah. But it was cool. People liked it. Maybe. I don't know. It's a Star Wars game. It's hard to tell if people liked it.
Yeah. Sounds bad. Sounds legit bad. Didn't even know it existed. So and I researched this episode pretty extensively. It didn't show up in anybody's lists.
Well, it was around the prequel times where there was a lot of, I mean, it straight up is Bombad Racing. It's a reference to the Gungan race. Like nobody wanted that.
Yeah. Oh God, I see this. It's like all the Star Wars characters are chibis.
Uh-huh.
And on the front, they have like a chibi Darth Maul, and he is super disturbing looking.
And they're also like a chibi Boss Nass on there. I'm trying to remember. I'm gonna pull it up too. So if you hear me typing, sorry about it.
Yeah, this is bad. This looks real bad.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's a Yoda in his little Jedi seat, and then Sebulba, and then the chibi Darth Maul.
Yep. Sebulba is there. Yeah, absolute madness. I never played the original Battlefronts, but I played both of the new Battlefronts, and so those are games that I played.
Those are definitely some of the video games of all time.
Yes. Here's the thing. Not having played the OG Battlefronts, though, you talked about, like, how do you get the feel of, like, a Hoth battle good? Because you mentioned that in the adventure part, where it's like, oh, you're running through the base and all that. I think that they got it in Battlefront, where you're like, I am cannon fodder, and I am just running around shooting at other cannon fodder, and then I turn the corner and oh shit, there's Darth Vader, and I am dead instantly.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a cool feeling. And then the only cooler feeling is when it's suddenly like, hey, you get to play as Darth Vader. And it's like, oh shit, yeah, it's amazing. So, I think they do a really good job of like getting the feel of the large scale battles correct in those moments.
Yeah.
Obviously, there is other stuff surrounding the Battlefront games, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But I do think on the whole, those games are like pretty good Star Wars games.
Yeah, they're not like terrible. They're passable games for sure. Yeah. I think there could have been a little bit more polish to them, a little more like some of the guns. I never felt like I was doing damage for a long, with some of the guns. And that just kind of made it discouraging to play. But I will say that one of my favorite things was installing Battlefront for my PlayStation 4, and then it like getting just far enough, and it's like, hey, we're gonna finish loading the game. You can start playing. We're gonna keep loading some stuff in the background, but while we do that, why don't you just play Darth Vader and go through the Hoth base and just kill everything you want to? And that was pretty awesome.
It's pretty good. It's pretty darn good. And then also I played Rogue Squadron for like 1 minute at a friend's house. I've never been a fan of flight games outside of Red Dogs, I think it was called. I don't remember. It was like on the Xbox. And so Star Wars does not. Nope, Red Dog is a 2011 film. I don't know. I'll figure it out. But anyway.
Crimson Skies?
Huh?
Crimson Skies?
Crimson Skies. That's it. You got it. First try, baby.
Nice.
Crimson Skies was great. But that's the only flight game that I ever really cared about. And that includes all Star Wars games. I really just don't give a shit about them.
Fair enough.
Any other miscellaneous games, like your puzzle games, your pinball games, trash ass predatory mobile games? What do you got?
I remember my brother being really into a game called Star Wars Rebellion, which was like you pick either the Rebellion or the Empire, and it was almost like Risk on your computer, except it wasn't like you didn't place these things, so you could send characters out for espionage and stuff. And this was like early days of the internet, and my brother had a buddy who he would play with all the time. And it would be like, I want to, we're like dial up internet. And I'm like, hey, I want to go on and check my AOL chat rooms or whatever. And he's like just playing Star Wars Rebellions until the, early hours of the dawn. But he loved the shit out of that game. And I could never figure out how to play it. It was so many menus, and like, it looked like it might've been cool. And as I it's available on Steam. I think you can pick it up for $5 or something like that. And from what I'm reading of the reviews, some people are like, this is my favorite video game of all time. I've put over 10,000 hours into it. This is so good, and it needs to be updated, like all this stuff. So it's got a hardcore fan base, but it's just not one that I was ever able to get into it.
So it looks like this game is very, very polarizing for people, because it received the most disappointing game of the year award at GameSpot's 1998 Best and Worst Awards.
Interesting.
Nominated for the Underachiever Award at IGN's Best of 1998 Awards. Uh, and part of the review for from Game Ranking says LucasArts should start looking more closely at what it slaps the Star Wars brand on, as consumers will be less likely to forget or forgive, which sounds like the most insane threat that I've ever heard from a game reviewer.
Yeah, it's from what I remember, like I said, me being the avid gamer of the family, like
Mm-hmm.
it didn't make any sense to me. So had I been like, "Oh, Star Wars Rebellion, this is going to be dope as hell," and I went and bought it and played it, I would have probably been really disappointed and angry. Um, but I think it's just like one of those things where you have like this is a very niche audience and they understand how to play it and they love it.
Yeah, that's fair. That's
Um,
totally fair.
outside of that, he also got me into playing Galactic Battlegrounds, which was like an RTS kind of game, which I'm also just bad at RTSs. But every once in a while we would play with like 3 of his friends or something like that. So it would be like a 6-player game, and I would just be on his team or whatever. Like, and we would like form these alliances or whatever, and I would just play it like Kingdom of Keflings, right? Like I'm building my own little city and gathering resources and doing these things, not really worrying about the setting up the army to attack and kill my friends.
Mm-hmm.
So I would handle that part, and he would handle the warfare part, and we did okay. So that was
Nice.
kind of fun. Outside of that, I can't think of many other random puzzle games or anything like that.
Nice. I tried, we'll start with the worst. I tried one of those shitty mobile games. It's called Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes, and it was exactly like all of the others, where you like collect cards of like Ewoks or whatever, and you've got 5 Ewoks, you can upgrade your Ewok, and then you can get into a boring turn-based battle against some bastard who spent $1,500 on the Darth Jar Jar pack, and he just wipes his ass with you. So that sucks. I've played some of the pinball games, and they're generally pretty good. It's hard. It's like hard to be upset at a pinball game.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last one that I want to talk about is one that you already brought up, which is Star Wars Yoda Stories.
Mm-hmm.
It is a top-down, procedurally generated. Now you call it an adventure game, but I view it as more of like a puzzle game.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like you could probably go either way. It was like you were adventuring in the areas that you were put into.
I guess so.
I mean, granted, it's also been a very long time since I've played Yoda Stories, so maybe I'm not remembering just how puzzly it was, but I just remember like being slapped down on a procedurally generated map and trying to find these, like it was like find these things and then you complete this level kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, but it was stuff like, oh, if you don't have the blaster, this thing will kill you. But if you have the blaster, you'll shoot it. And then you can move past it.
Yeah.
Oh, and then, so it's like, how do I get around this guy in a certain, because it was turn based, if I remember correctly. I don't think it was real time, where it was like, you move, everything else moves. You move, everything else moves, like one of
Mhm.
those. And I remember it being like pretty puzzly. It was so much fun though. Played it on Windows 3.1. It was just great. It was also, I looked it up. It came out on Game Boy and Game Boy Color.
Oh yeah, it did.
So that's pretty great. But it ruled. It was like a ton of fun. And it was just like Luke's story of like training on Dagobah with Yoda or whatever.
Yeah.
So
Or occasionally be on like Tatooine. They also made, I'm pretty sure they made Indiana Jones games in the same style,
that makes
but it
sense.
wasn't like Indiana Jones stories or something. It was just a similar thing. I don't remember what they were called, but
Yeah.
I remember seeing the advertisements in the back of the CD case. Back when PC games had those.
Yep, that's awesome. Yeah, but anyway, Star Wars.
My brother still has our copy of Yoda Stories. I wonder if that'll work on my. I mean, I guess I would need a disk drive. Oops.
I mean, it's probably
It's not on Steam, but I'm sure it's downloadable somewhere. It can't be that many. It can't be like a huge download.
Oh yeah, definitely not. It's on myabandonware.com. So
Nice.
that's probably totally legit.
Yep.
Yeah. Anyway, the game ruled, and if you have a chance to play it, I highly recommend checking it out.
4 megabytes. Do it.
4 megabytes. It's also available on Amazon. You can purchase it for $59.99.
Jesus.
Only one left in stock, though. Order soon. So, yeah, cool. Ridiculous. Check to see if your brother has it, because it's great. All right, here's what's not great. Star Wars game controversies. A good chunk of the controversies stem from a 10-year exclusive contract that EA had to create Star Wars games. What are your thoughts about this deal? What is your thoughts about some of the shitstorm that followed? Just lay it on the line.
I actually didn't. I don't think I was aware of this. I didn't keep up on my Star Wars gaming news. It seems like a bad deal to give exclusivity to a company known for barely trying. And after reading this question, I did look it up and can confirm poor choice. That was what the newer Battlefront games and the 2 Star Wars Jedi games. So like,
yeah.
50-50.
Oh, I mean, there were a bunch of other shitty decisions that were
Star Wars Squadrons, I think was one of them.
Yeah.
I just don't like EA has. I can't think of the last time EA's put out a game where they've really tried. Like all their sports games have gone. Like I used to be a huge fan of the NHL series, and everything I'm reading is just like this game has been shit since 2014. Like it's why do they keep they bought Rock Band and just kind of ran that into the ground. Like they just don't know. They just want to put shit out every year so they make their money on it, and they just don't actually try to make something worth buying.
Yeah. Yep. Absolute madness. So for those of you who are not aware of this, EA had a 10-year exclusive contract to create Star Wars games with the ability to like extend that if either party wanted to. And then, at some point in those 10 years, EA got voted the worst company on the planet. So, I'm sorry, not worst, most hated company on the planet. I want to be accurate here. So that's pretty amazing. And then they released Battlefront 2. And they released it as an $80 game with like the special edition or whatever, which is what you needed to like have all of the content. But then characters in Star Wars Battlefront wouldn't unlock the way that you would normally expect them to unlock, where it's like, oh, you did this challenge on a level, you unlock this character, or oh, this other thing, you unlock this character. It was like you play and you grind and you grind and you grind and you grind, and then you get a loot box. And in that loot box, you had the chance to unlock like characters, but also like voice packs and helmets and gun skins and all of that sort of dumb bullshit cosmetic stuff. And so people were outraged, right? And somebody made a Reddit thread 6 years ago that said, I paid $80 to have Vader locked. And I forgot, the worst part is you could buy these loot boxes, and so you could like grind for characters, and then there were special loot boxes you could pay extra for that had like guaranteed, like it's guaranteed to come from this pool, so it was just ridiculous. But somebody posted, I paid $80 to have Vader locked. And then EA's community team responded with that with the quote, the intent is to provide players with a sense of pride and accomplishment for unlocking different heroes. As for cost, we selected initial values based upon data from the open beta and other adjustments made to milestone rewards before launch. Among other things, we're looking at average per player credit earn rates on a daily basis, and we'll be making constant adjustments to ensure that players have challenges that are compelling, rewarding, and of course attainable via gameplay. We appreciate the candid feedback and the passion the community has put forth around the current topics here on Reddit, our forums, and across numerous other social media outlets. Our team will continue to make changes and monitor community feedback. And then after that, it's just person after person after person saying, like, thank you, I have canceled my pre-order. Thank you, I have canceled my pre-order. You know, it's absolutely amazing. Just like the extreme amount of goodwill, because there are a lot of Star Wars apologists out there, the extreme amount of goodwill that they just burn through with this one statement, absolute maddening. Now, here's the cool part. I firmly believe that them bungling Star Wars Battlefront 2 so badly that they had to eventually remove all of the microtransactions that led directly to their exclusivity not being renewed. And I am so grateful for that. I want companies to be able to make Star Wars games. Like, am I going to play Star Wars Outlaws? Probably not. It's an Ubisoft game, and Ubisoft kind of Ubisoft. But I'm glad that they get the chance to try, you know? Yeah. So, I don't know.
Yeah, if a big company like EA is going to be holding on to the rights to make these games in exclusivity, we're not going to have companies like BioWare making the next Knights of the Old Republic.
Right.
So it seems silly to put all your eggs in this fucking no-try basket.
Yes, exactly. So, I mean, speaking of what you just mentioned, we're on the other side of the deal. What are your hopes for some Star Wars games in the future? And I kind of want to go first on this one.
Okay.
Because I have a very short list. I want a remake of Knights of the Old Republic 1 and 2. They're currently working on it. I just want it to be good. Please make it good. I would love maybe another game in a similar vein to that, but definitely by a different studio. You mentioned BioWare. BioWare to me is a bag of fucking skim milk at this point. The stuff that used to make it BioWare is not there anymore. And so I want some other company to be able to take a shot at a really awesome RPG that like tells a grand story. Star Wars is a universe where grand stories can be built out of anything, right? You look at Rogue One. Rogue One should not be as good of as a movie as it is, but it is because Star Wars allows it to be this big epic thing, even though it's just the story of like six shitters just like stealing some plans or whatever, right? And so I think like if you can capture that feeling in a video game, you're going to do absolutely amazing things. And now that it's not exclusive to EA, you can pitch the shit to Disney, LucasArts, whoever you want to call them, and like hopefully they'll go along with it, right?
Right.
Would I be more happy if there was some sort of like crazy blanket licensing agreement for like indie developers? Yes, of course, but that's not realistic. But that's it. That's what I want. Oh, and I also want, I lied. I want one other thing. I want a sequel to that dumbass Star Wars Just Dance game because that shit was hilarious.
Of Star Wars Connect that featured that.
Yep, but I want it to just be the dancing thing. I want at the next Game Awards, I want like 3 Han Solos dancing badly to like
Hollaback Girl.
Yeah, exactly. Perfect.
Nice.
What about you?
It's funny hearing your answer because I'm gonna say some things that might just cause a huge divide in us. And as much as I love, like I grew up, it was so big a part of me. As much as I love the original and to some extent the prequel trilogies, the Disney acquisition of Star Wars kind of killed it for me. And the one that did it to me the most, the one that made me kind of think like, oh shit, maybe I just don't like Star Wars anymore, was Rogue One. I really hate that movie. It's so hard for me to watch. And I know everybody loves it. People claim it's the best fucking Star Wars movie ever, and I just can't do it. I audibly booed at it in the theater on opening night, and I have tried to watch it since then, and I can't do it. I can't, it's so fucking boring. I don't like any of the characters except for Shooty and Stick, and that's what I call them because I couldn't remember their names, which was another weird feeling for me because I used to know every side character's name going into a Star Wars movie. And I think I think I only have an idea because I worked at GameStop when they had like the pop figures out. It's like Chirrut Imwe and something else. The dude who was like in the red army or the red armor and had the big gun, and the blind guy who was like training like I am one with the Force, whatever. Those were the only two compelling characters. I hated Cassian Andor. I didn't like whatever the main girl's name was. None of the characters were interesting to me, and to sit there and have to watch them for 2 hours made me hate everything.
Wow.
And so I have honestly, like, I have no hope for future Star Wars games because I've just kind of been done with the whole franchise since then. Mandalorian gives me a little bit of hope. I watched the first 2 seasons of that. I still haven't watched Book of Boba Fett. I watched Obi-Wan Kenobi, and that was kind of meh for me. And I'm not going to watch. Everybody tells me that Andor is probably some of the greatest Star Wars stuff that's ever been made, and I don't care because I hated that character. And so I hate to take a big dump on Star Wars in the Star Wars episode, but that's just been me lately. I have a hard time caring about it unless it's like the original trilogy and just the good memories I have of being in the thick of it when the prequels came out.
Yeah.
So I hope they can do good stuff. I really would like to find things that can get me reinvigorated. I think one thing that I really hold against Star Wars is the fact that every time they come out with something, there has to be this carrot dangled of like, "Ooh, you remember that stuff you like? It's here." Like if Rey would have not been Palpatine's granddaughter, I would have probably liked that movie so much more. But the fact that like you have to be somebody or tangentially connected to another character in the Star Wars lore, it's so daunting at this point.
Yeah.
So I hope they can come up with new character, like the Force Unleashed thing, taking this like nobody character and then like throwing it in, like that was cool. And I hope they can do more stuff like that. And I have hopes for Jedi Survivor if I ever get around to playing it, or Fallen Order, which is the first one. Like if they can make those characters interesting, I hope it happens. But I'm not holding my breath for it.
Yeah, that's fair. I'm not going to lie. I'm very surprised by your take on Rogue One. I am not at all surprised on your take at anything else Disney. I will agree. Like Book of Boba Fett, it's a real slow burn. Andor is like a real slow burn. Like there were a couple times where we almost stopped watching it because it was just like there is nothing happening here. But in my mind, those most oftentimes pay off in a way where I feel it was worth the watch. I enjoyed Kenobi. I haven't watched the Ashoka.
Yeah, I haven't either.
But I'm probably going to enjoy it. It's just one of those things where like all of these TV series at this point, for me, they feel a little formulaic and they feel a little slow. But in general, I still enjoy them. But I also feel the same way about Marvel since Disney's acquisition, where it's like, that's not fair. Not since Disney's acquisition, but basically since the end of the first phase
right?
of MCU.
Since the first Avengers.
No, since the end of it.
Oh, since the end of
phase one.
So post Endgame is what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
Where most of the shows are now like, I kind of can see what's coming from pretty far away, you know, and they keep doing the same thing, but it keeps kind of working. Yeah. And so they don't really have the incentive to move on. Yeah. So I get it. But man, I hope I have similar hopes to you where it's like, man, build some cool new characters, share some cool, interesting new parts of the Star Wars universe that are not connected to the Skywalker saga at all. But that just use the established world as opposed to the established characters. To your point, one of my least favorite things that I've ever seen is in Solo. where it's like every time you see a thing that matters later on, it like freeze frames on it, and there's like a swell of music, and it's like, oh, it's the first time you see the Millennium Falcon, and it's like, oh, the Millennium Falcon.
Yeah.
It's like, fuck this, man, just tell the story. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On the same thing, like I did enjoy Solo. I thought it was a fun movie. And if they are going to continue like saying like we have to do these characters, like explore those characters, like do something kind of similar to that, but just don't like shove it in our faces when the Millennium Falcon comes up. Like let's just enjoy it.
Yes, exactly. All right, it is time for our sponsored question. Every time I read it, it's funny. This question is sponsored by Jizz, which is the name of the genre of music that Friggin' Dan and the Modal Nodes played in the Mos Eisley Cantina. This is a real thing. It is the music is really called Jizz. You can look up Jizz Star Wars, and it will not be what you think it is. It will be this music. And then if you scroll down a little bit, it'll be what you think it is.
Then you'll run into Star Balls.
Yep. You can look it up, though.
Real Star Wars hentai. That's hysterical.
Yeah. So anyway, Jizz wants to know, Star Wars is known for the buckets of lore that accompany every single character who's ever been on screen. Since everyone has lore, which character do you wish had their own game, and what would you like it to be like?
I want to first pull back the curtain. Before we started recording this episode, Dale's like, hey, when we get to the sponsored question, let's try to play it super straight. And you got to the next sponsored question, and you just like immediately lost it.
Yep. To be fair, I said, hey, let's try. And then I went, never mind. And then you made me tell you what I was thinking. And I was like, let's play it super straight. Like, and then I said, but I know I won't be able to do that. And so it's not fair to ask you to do it. So yeah. I know what I'm about. Jizz is fucking funny.
Oh, you really leaned into the buckets of jizz. That's great.
Yeah, I didn't even think of that when I wrote it, but then I saw it and I was like, yeah.
Well, I'm actually going to start this question or this response with answering a question you're going to ask later, which is where people can find me on the interwebs. And I am Zando Calrissian on every possible platform. Lando Calrissian has always been my favorite character. I think he's just a cool dude. I got to meet Billy D. Williams. I have an autographed picture of him like making an X with his arms that says to Zando from Lando. Lando is my dude. So give me a Lando game, and here's one for free. Grand Theft Auto Cloud City. Show me Lando's rise from a smuggler to the leader of an entire gas mining operation, set in like just a goofy, like finding these other gangsters and shit like that, flying around the galaxy. I think that's a brilliant idea, and we need it.
I also think it's a brilliant idea. In fact, I am surprised that they have not already made this.
There you go.
This one seems so obvious.
Yeah. Just give someone the keys. Make let's after the Grand Theft Auto 6 comes out, let's just throw them the Star Wars property. Like, hey, Rockstar, you make pretty decent games. Here's a Star Wars license. Make me a fucking Lando game.
Yeah, seriously. Absolutely flawless. I have 3 different ideas. And I'm just going to list them off. And if you have questions about any of them, I will explain them. To start with, one that also to me seems unbelievably obvious: Mace Windu origin story. Mace Windu rules. Like he's a very interesting character. We don't know shit about him. I would like to know how he came to be.
Mm-hmm.
Easy, right? Second idea. Do you remember how in the mid-90s there were a series of games that were obsessed with like pranking or scaring people? One of them was like Poltergeist, and you could like take over like the grandfather clock and make it ring right as somebody is walking by, and it would scare them. Mm-hmm. And like that sort of shit. I want one of those style games, but you're Salacious Crumb in Jabba's palace, and you're just trying to cause mischief.
Okay.
I think it'd be hilarious.
All right, I'm into it.
Last one, Admiral Akbar RTS.
See, when you were I would think Admiral Akbar would be more the prank because it's going to be a trap, and so like maybe you're just stopping those pranks or something.
Mm.
Of those three, I'm most interested in the Mace Windu origin story. But I am curious what your Admiral Akbar RTS is all about.
Well, so here's the thing, right? They talk about how Admiral Akbar is this like brilliant strategist and like, okay, great. And then he's on screen for like fucking 15 seconds, right? He's like, you don't get to see any of that aside from the fact that he's the first guy to realize that it's a trap. Like, give me some juice there, man. Like, show me some of the other fights that he has like gone through. Maybe you start on like small scale planetary battles where you're leading troops against the Empire, and then like you scale up, to where it's like, okay, cool, now it's these like large scale space battles, and you're like trying to allocate resources and pull in favors, and maybe you have like, I don't know, like rep with different factions of rebels that you can call on. Like, there's a bunch that you can do here to like figure out how to show how good of a strategic mind Admiral Akbar is. And I really feel like an RTS is the best place to show that story. But you get none of that in the movies. And so I think it'd be a cool way to like actually show that off.
Yeah. I do need to go back and just point out that Lando was the first one to realize it was a trap. Akbar was the first one who yelled it out to everybody.
Okay, fair enough. Yes.
I mean, I can't be who I am and not give Lando the proper credit.
Yes, fair enough.
So yeah, it's, as far as your other answers go, like I said, Mace Windu's got me the most interested because I loved one of the cool things that I think the prequels trilogy set up was the Order of the Jedi and those guys that had risen to power. So I would love to learn more about Mace Windu, how he got to where he was, and then also just see little hints of like Kit Fisto or Plo Koon. Like Kit Fisto is probably my favorite Jedi, so I would love to see more about him.
Yeah,
tangentially, I guess.
Perfect.
And I know that goes completely against my thing of dangling the carrots about other characters, but I think that's kind of a given when you are exploring the background of someone like Mace Windu.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and it's a story that you can tell without it being like super connected to the Skywalker saga. Like, obviously we know where it ends, but like it didn't have to begin there. So I don't know. Cool. You got anything else that you want to say about Star Wars video games?
I just how much I want these two characters, these two minority characters to take charge in the Star Wars universe and give us some good games based on Lando and Mace Windu. Put them in the same fucking game. I don't care.
Yeah.
just don't make them related. God damn it.
Oh man. Here's the thing. If it was EA, I could totally see it being like Star Wars Black Stories or some bullshit. Right. So I'm glad it's not EA anymore. Yeah. God damn it.
Could you imagine the ridiculous thing of like, here's Lando starting out and he finds a purple lightsaber. It used to belong to my grandfather. Like, fuck that. Don't. I'd be so mad. It would make me hate the character of Lando.
Oh man. Honestly, man, you were talking about like Rockstar taking this on. Like, I know the timelines don't line up, but I could see a Grand Theft Auto Cloud City or a Grand Theft Auto Star Wars where it's like Lando and Mace and someone else, because they're like different enough that it would like be cool the same way that like Franklin and
Franklin, Michael, and why am I forgetting Trevor?
That's I was thinking Tyler, but it's Trevor. That's the one I couldn't think of. Just like how they're different enough where it's like, oh, this is a fun, like, I get to like explore these different stories. I could see that being cool. The timelines don't line up. You need to find someone else. Maybe it's Plo Koon. Maybe it's Mace Windu, Plo Koon, and somebody else. I don't know.
Hell
but
yeah, man.
It'd be cool. Anyway, that's all I have to say about Star Wars. Aside from like, if you don't like Star Wars, fuck you, Dan.
You mentioned Frindan earlier, and I thought that was going to be the closest we got to F Dan.
Friggin' Dan.
Friggin' Dan.
Yep. Oh man. All right, cool. Zando already told you where you can find him. He's Zando Calrissian everywhere. But I am a 20-sided ninja on the Discord and on Blue Sky. Please hop in, tell us your thoughts on Star Wars video games. And if you made it this far, may the force be with you. Also, extra force to all of our Patreon subscribers. Without you, we could not get this across Rebel transmissions in the free way that we are able to. So
many Bothans died to bring this podcast to you.
yes, they did. Even though they didn't, that's the one thing that sucks. Is like nowhere in Rogue One did many Bothans die.
The part in Rogue One that made me literally out loud in the theater go boo was that moment where Darth Vader choked a dude out and turned and said, "Don't choke on your aspirations." I hated it. I hated it so bad.
Fair. I get it. Yeah, Darth Vader is many things, but he's not snarky.
To be fair, he was a father at that point, but that does not give him an excuse to make dad jokes. You get to make more badass stuff, like when he choked a dude out and said, "Apology accepted." That's so much more menacing than a fucking dad joke.
That's true. Yes. All right. If you're still listening, thanks for listening.
Please jump in the Discord and tell me how wrong I am about Rogue One. I've heard it all before, but I welcome your anger.
Hey, man. Anger leads to hate or
Going
whatever.
Sith Lord on you.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for listening. Say goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye, everybody. Support our troops. The 501st, that is.
Yeah, those ones.
Those guys.